Officer, this Krogan is part of a secret Spectre task force. Operation Fire Cobra Claw.
Operation Fire Cobra Claw?
That's right. I can take it from here.
Hello everyone, my name is Hamwich, and welcome to your first episode of Mass Effect Guardian RP Roundup. A weekly podcast where we read the main events and side stories, then chop them up into bite-sized pieces for you to listen to. That way you can always stay up to date with what's been happening within the Mass Effect Guardian universe. Pro tip: if you find yourself enjoying these stories we report upon, I implore you, please visit the original roleplay. I promise you, it is a bazillion times more satisfying. Almost as gratifying as a Grifter and James slashfic. I want to thank Cowher for taking the time to compile this week's Avalon main story. So thank you, good sir. Thank you. In this week's episode, we'll be taking a look at the three main stories in the Avalon, the Gandiva, and the Muramasa. Then, we'll be having a spotlight on our newest watcher, James Talon, followed by our first Yarg player, Modicare. Then we'll look at our first promo event, Moon-Shaped Pool. First up, we have a brand new event happening on the Avalon called Tissues of Moonshine. Which totally doesn't sound like a metaphor for anything. The synopsis of the event states, in the 5 months since the insurrection's demise, the galaxy has gotten caught up in their own internal issues. However, when long-range scanners from the CSV Aegis and several other Citadel starships have picked up an unidentified object moving around the far rim systems of the galaxy, focus begins to shift ever so slightly. With a lack of resources dedicated to figuring out what it is, the Admiralty assigned the CSV Avalon by itself to go investigate the odd disturbance and to launch an expedition if needed. With tensions high and expectations varied, one has to ask themselves, what is waiting for them in the far rim? Tissues of Moonshine begins with August Emerson alone in his personal quarters. He is interrupted by an urgent report from the bridge that an unidentified series of objects has been detected in the far rim. Wondering what this meant, August sent everyone's favourite sadistic Solarian, Jazzo, a message to put together an investigation team. The ground team being sent to investigate the strange anomaly is comprised of Admiral Mazaril, Luxander, the Avalon's XO, Nasinia Janis, research specialist, Odette Pirelli, everyone's favourite psychopath and engineer specialist, as well as Admiral Marshall Blackwood as Aegis support, the first player character from a different ship to partake in another ship's respective main story. Next, we have a new event happening on the Gandiva called Moonage Daydream. The synopsis states that, in an era of galactic peacekeeping and with political tensions on the rise, the CSV Gandiva finds themselves heading to rendezvous with a secretive group claiming to offer valuable assets for the coming tension. But before any details could take place, the Guardian vessel experiences numerous severe system failures. Against the turmoil and confusion of a home turned against its masters, the crew of the Gandiva race to identify the threat, save their friends, and avert potentially the biggest catastrophe Guardian could suffer to date. Finally, we have the new event happening on the Muramasa called Snowblind. The synopsis states that, with the Terminus Confederation having seized most of Council interests outside of Council space itself, the Asari Councillor sends a team from the Muramasa to the far reaches of the Terminus system to help evacuate a remaining corporation staff who are under siege. Why this lone corporation's office is such an important target remains a mystery. In our RP Spotlight, we'll be taking a brief look at our first watcher, James Talon. During an official statement, he announced he will bring his unprecedented leadership qualities, as well as his combat prowess, to every ship and execute the will of Emerson, the Council, and Guardian. However, there have been rumours of a more dubious side to the Watcher. They say he is setting up a small group of trusted associates that will help strengthen his position, though what he plans to do with the additional power is still unknown. Though there are signs that point towards the Avalon as his first objective. Also in our RP Spotlight, we'll look at Mordekir, the Yarg exile. What's interesting about Mordekir is that he's our first Yarg character created by Zerg with a little help from Sam. He's honor bound to serve Cassius, so he has been put on the Gandiva, away from all the prying eyes of the galaxy. Mordekir, of course, held the position of 5th of the 7 champions in the Yarg Horde. They are the apex soldiers in what would be considered the Horde's enlisted ranks, loyal and unquestioning to the leaders of the chain of succession. He is now part of what is quickly becoming the old guard of the Yarg society, keeping the old ways and honouring the traditions of their forefathers. When the 5th champion was defeated during an extranet televised meeting between the Horde and the Council, Mordekir suffered further insult to injury by the Yarg ambassador. As punishment for being a nuisance to the progressive society, as well as embarrassing their nation, Mordekir was stripped of his rank and was forced to serve his betters, the Spectre Cassius Strada, an alien. Mordekir is now honor bound to Strada. The disgraced champion seeks to learn all he can about his master and the Guardian organization, as well as escape his exile from the Horde. For our promos this week, we've got a side event for the Aegis called Moon-Shaped Pool. The synopsis for the event states that the CSV Aegis docks with the Caperian space station to resupply. A small team of operatives board the station to help oversee the transfer of supplies. After a mundane meeting with the station's leader Zerdan Johei, a string of deaths have the operatives looking into an endless spiral of murders, and when things turn dire for the crew, they can't help but wonder how many of them will return to the Aegis safely. Well folks, that brings us to the end of our first episode of RP Roundup. I want to say a huge thank you to our GMs, admins and mods for creating these awesome events for us all. I'd like to thank No Brainer and Zerg for letting me do an RP spotlight on their characters, and for providing me a summary to use in this podcast. I also want to thank Cowher, who is going to be overviewing the Avalon events for us and giving us weekly reports. On that note, we are still looking for someone to help us out reporting on the Muramasa event.
So I implore you, message me on that Discord application thingy-mabob.
Finally, I'd like to thank you all for listening.
You've been a jolly good audience. I thank you. I'm Hamwich, and this has been RP Roundup.